gosh, that number, that gold leaf, that color scheme. I'm here with Billy Vielhauer from the Beaver Drill and Tool Company. I love it. Mission Road, Kansas. So, Billy, I have to give you something that we want to give you, and I was wondering if you could read it out for me as you see it for the first time. Could you just tell me what that says?
Certificate of Excellence presented to the Vielhauer family. In recognition of outstanding contribution to the sport of the sprint car racing in Knoxville Raceway and beyond, the Beaver Drill and Tool Company family are an integral and a vital part of the sport of dirt track racing. Very grateful for the years of support for the sprint car capital of the world and industry. Thank you for all you do, the management teams and fans of Knoxville Raceway. That's cool.
That's a pretty cool picture too, isn't it?
That is.
So I wanted to say on behalf of all of us, thank you, because what you've done for so many years is Billy's and your dad's memory, and it's very special to us. And I just said to you that you're iconic even down in Australia.
Well, to think of it that way, and you know what all my dad's done, and basically it's for the sprint car world and for the teaching of the youth of the importance of paying attention to detail and being involved in a team. That's what we've always been about.
Yeah.
And I've tried to do the same thing this year and hopefully carry it on for a few more years, where this is a recognition to everybody's been helping all year.
Yeah.
I've got 3 teenage boys helping. They didn't know what a wheel spacer was when they started.
Really?
And to be able to go out and run second in our second race in 19 years, and led most of it. Had fortunate enough to have Chase Randall driving for us and working with John and those guys while we're waiting for possibility Blake Feast driving. You know, I've had between the Randalls, the Genetons, and now Garrett Williamson with Dennis Moore Jr. and the things they've helped me out to remind me of what I did know, and then show me the new things that's going on, and then be able to get something like this is, makes it worthwhile.
Now, can we tell about this story? I want you to tell me the story of this incredible place. And can we start, Billy, with, look up there. I mean, that's an original wing up there, the 11X?
That's from 1981. There's panels up there through the years. 12X. Next to that is, I think that's from the early 2000s. Some panels from the late 90s. This stuff that we just kind of hung on to. I knew there was a reason I always had off in the corner. My dad always got mad at me for hoarding and hold on to that stuff. When we came through, and when he had passed right over 7 years ago now, we came in and we cleaned out the shop because, you know, we didn't race for so long. It has a lot of junk in it. But I pulled all this stuff out and I just started putting it up. And behind that, we haven't built a shelf yet, but there's trophies up there from the,
I can
80s.
see that.
The World Outlaw feature went from when Sammy drove Fords and stuff up there. Of course, I got 2 hubcaps from TJ Fords that Chase Randall, as little as he is, he drives so hard, he did that each night he drove the car.
Really?
So I had to hang them up there.
He's a heck of a wheeler, isn't he?
Oh my gosh, the kid is just wonderful.
He's going places.
A good friend of mine I used to drink with on Wednesday nights during the winters and plays football bets. He passed away a few years ago, and he had those horns up
I was wondering
in
about
his
that.
office. So when we decided to get back into racing, he was always saying you got to take the bull by the horn. So that's where those horns ended up. Because every time those boys look up there, I look up there. I said, hey, no matter how bad it gets, let's grab it and let's go.
How many years has this team been doing, in any form, racing?
My father started out sponsoring the guy in 1980. Kind of had some things going on there. They parted ways. He bought him out and became a car owner. That's kind of where the 11X comes from, because that was his 11th year in business. He took over Beaver Drill and bought some partners out when he was 26 years old.
No way.
He took off with Beaver, grew it. His 11th year in business, became a sprint car owner. And then the next year, that was an old Nance car. He took that car, gave it to my uncle to give him something to do. Then he bought a new Trossel, and that was his 12th year in business. So that's where the 11X 12 comes from. And we were a 12 number all the way up till Shane Carson drove our car weekly in 1986 at Knoxville. And then because of the Macau car,
in respect to Harold Arnett.
Yes, yes.
Whoever signs in first gets the number, right?
Yes.
Dad goes, we're not going to have that problem. We're just going to put the X on it, and that's where the 12X comes from. 11X obviously comes from Kinzer was 11, and he goes, well, we're not going to do that. So that's where the X came from on that. So it's kind of the history of the X's and 11 and 12, and then once we got to the 12, he just kept it that number. He liked it. And his second year as a car owner, full year as a car owner, is 1982. He hired Sonny Smizer to drive the car, and we traveled with the NSCA. And NSCA back in the day was like you had the Outlaws, you had NSA, and you had the All-Stars.
Yep.
We traveled 11 states, raced 63 times that year, and won the championship in his second year as ever an owner. And the guys who helped on that car, here's the ironic thing, there's Danny and Ronnie Musselman who own Maxim.
Yes.
They worked on our car in 1980.
No way.
We did all that traveling. So, yeah, we've got it. There's a little bit of more history there, and it's just it just goes to show how small of a close-knit group that sprint car racers really are, and we all know each other. And then all the different drivers we had over the years. I was talking to the Keatings the other day, and Brent Keating drove our car one time in Denver back in 1987. And before that, the Nationals, Leland McSpadden drove it at the Nationals. Ran 13th or 14th in EA with the left front flat the whole race. So it was almost won or qualified.
Well, I mean, that's the only one you can get away with, right? The left front is the only one you're going to get away with.
That's it. And that was one of the guys that can handle it too. So, oh yeah.
From two things you said to me about the 12X and the 11X, with the X being the way that separates Steve Kinzer and not signing in first with Harold Arnett, that just says respect to me, that your dad respected that legacy.
Well, you got to give it to get it. And he fully understood that, and he taught me a lot about that. So,
sounds like that's ingrained in you, Billy. Like that's a...
Has to be. And I'm trying to do the same thing with my nephews. My sons get it. They just weren't fortunate enough to be around racing. They were old enough to get involved about the time we quit.
Yeah. Because you've been in and out a little bit, right? Yeah. Over the years. Has that also been because you need to focus on business as well? Like, is it a life balance thing?
Well, it was that, and my dad was a little discouraged over some of the things that happened over the years, a couple things, and he felt, well, if I can't trust anybody and send people out as a team, because he had one bad apple is all it takes.
Yeah.
And then it turned him off on it, so we went to Lake the Ozarks, and we focused on business. My dad was one of those guys, when he passed, I couldn't get right back into racing because I was a salesman. I didn't know about the inner workings of the business.
Yeah.
And he basically told me, I asked him one day, about 5 years before he passed, I said, when am I going to get a chance to run the business to show you what I can do? And his words were, when I'm dead. He goes, you continue to make money for me now.
Yes.
I'll run the business side of it and let me worry about that. You'll learn soon enough. And we were fortunate enough where he had a right-hand man named Keith Tashler, who kind of ran a business when he wasn't around, that hung around long enough after he passed to kind of get me transferred over to the business part of it, to the salesman side of it.
Right.
And it doesn't happen overnight, and it took a few years, and it took 6 years by the time I could get to the point where we could put a car on the track again, because one thing Dad did wanted to do was one last year to go run Knoxville and see what we can get done, and just to do it. And I was able to do that, start this year, and we'll go the full season next year with whomever we decide to choose to drive.
That was going to say, that's always the interesting part with you guys.
Yeah.
Variety is the spice of life, Billy. So it would seem.
Yeah, it is. Well, sometimes it is the spice of life, and my dad always spiced it up with a little bit of temper. So,
where does that can I ask about the origins of Vielhauer to start with?
German.
Okay.
German, and the name's German, but percentage-wise, we've got a lot more Irish blood in us. My grandmother's name was Gallagher, 100%.
That's a pretty wild concoction of German and Irish.
You get the beer and the whiskey mixed in, you get in trouble.
Wow. How long have you been in this location where we are in Shawnee, right?
We started racing out of here halfway through the summer in '99. So I was running 360s at the time, and we were running Sedalia, Missouri a lot, and then some 410 stuff, just hit and miss around Tulsa and Moberly, Missouri, and places. And then my wife, after we raced through 91, rewind a little bit, 91, she got pregnant with twins, so therefore he goes, "You're done racing.
Yep.
Twins to race." And
Yep.
I raced a few times for some other people, but in 93 he hired Danny Smith, and we had Stevie Smith in 94. And then he quit in 94 for a little while. And
Yep.
96 we were at the lake, and I had just bought a pontoon boat for the kids and the family. And we're sitting there. I signed the papers on 4th of July weekend on a 10 o'clock in the morning. By 1:30 we were drinking some beers, and he was telling me, "Oh, by the way, I got an old gambler sitting here. Let's go racing again." I went, "I just bought a boat." "Well, that's all right. I got a motor coming. It'll be here in 2 weeks. Let's get ready." I'm like, "Okay." So we did. That's when we started running weekly. It's a day on a 360 deal, just to kind of keep the itch going. It was there. We scratched it, and we raced off and on for a while. And then I got hurt in 2000. We were running a lot of ASCS stuff.
Yep.
And then we took off part of a year. And in 2002, a very good friend of my dad's was Stubbank Hersbrook, who owned a VKCC car.
Yeah.
Because he bought some of our old stuff in 2000 to help Jesse Hockett get going.
Oh, wow.
And then, their shop is literally about 2.5 miles directly south of here.
Is it really?
And so then he teamed up with Stubb. They kind of friends said, let's go our separate ways. And then we hired Wayne Johnson to drive 2003 and ran Knoxville Weekly and won a few races. And the next year we went to Florida with Sammy, and Sammy and got to talking to the old man, come back to me, and he says he wants to do 50 races. I said, "There's no freaking way. We don't have time. We can't do it." And,
Yep.
and we did it anyway. We did it anyway.
Sammy talked you into it?
No, he talked him into it.
Yeah, right.
I told him there's no way, but we did, and you know what? That was a season where I learned a lot. Sammy's one of the smartest guys,
Yeah.
if not the smartest guy I've ever been around in sprint cars. Doesn't make it easy on you.
You just peeled off, like, in the 10 minutes we've been talking, Shane Carson, Stevie Smith, Andy Hillenberg, Sammy Swindell, Wayne Johnson, Chase Randall, just
Jay Giddings.
There you go.
Tiger Bob Williams, first guy to drive the 12 car.
Tiger Bob Williams
towards the end of his career. TJ took over him halfway through the year in 81, and he won his first one he considered 410s in first sprint car race.
Yeah, no 360.
At Lakeside Speedway in our car, and that was our first win ever as a feature winner.
No way.
With TJ Giddings in the car in 1981. And then you can relate that. I knew Justin Giddings, who's part owner of the 25 car, the Dirty Air car.
Yep.
I remember I got a picture. I don't know if it's here, but of him in diapers sitting on the left rear tire. The picture getting taken in our yard.
So you told me you stopped at counting at 36 drivers.
Yeah.
So you could be 50.
Could be. I doubt it. I think we might be a little over that but there's guys that are calling me up. I put out a list about 3 or 4 years ago, and there's some guys calling me. I drove that car once, twice. George Austin called me up, and he drove it at Knoxville one night. I didn't even know he did. It's about the time I was away I had twin boys, and I had a boy on the way, so I didn't pay much attention to the racing for a while. So I've got guys coming out of woodwork telling me, and then they're proving that they did. They'll show me a picture or send something to me. So I don't know where it could go.
Okay, so you got your shop out here. I just can't stop looking at that 12X. Yep. So in here. Oh wow, it's like a barber shop in here.
Well, this is where back when we first built the building, we redid our own heads, ground our valves, and did our rebuilds in this room. This is why we call this the engine room. And then obviously the resurgence of engine builders and the fueling of the car, the stuff that you had to basically pay for the technology and spend the money with an engine builder. And so our first go around with the engine builder was Earl Gertie. My dad and Earl Gertie had a really good relationship, and so this was the engine room just for our rebuilds. But then it got to a point where we just focused and sent everything to either Westmar or to Kistler or whoever we were dealing with that year, and this turned into where we have our lunches or dinners
And of course, there's this bar. My dad bought that at a Walmart.
At a Walmart?
And he sat there and he would turn out the lights like this.
Yep.
Because he could watch everything we were doing in the shop there. So he would do
No
that.
pressure.
He would no pressure. He'd get into the whiskey, and if he didn't like
Oh.
something, he would
Tap
let
on the
us
window?
know. Yeah, absolutely. I told you about the Hillenberg. So I had a guy I buy all my parts from, Scott Boner at Midland Performance.
Yep.
Sent me that picture. And that's Andy Hillenberg's first
Look at him there.
410 win, and that was in Donaldson, Iowa. Yeah.
What a cool rooster that guy is.
Jim Springer was a mechanic then.
So who's in that shot that you've just got right there?
Okay, so this is me and three of my buddies.
Yep.
We took an 85 Trossel in 86. Didn't have a new tire. All my dad's spare stuff laying around the shop. We put that together and put Dean Chad in it. And we almost did the alphabet soup.
Really?
Went from the I know the C, was in the B, running fourth in the B, and Greg Woolley lost a driveline coming off of 4. We ran over and we finished like 6th or something. Shane Carson was in the other car, and he was in the A main. And from what we did all week with all used stuff, not having any expenses, a lot of expenses, we made more money than Shane did. And the old man shut us down. We didn't get to race.
Oh, no way.
You're not showing me up anymore. So.
That's a beautiful sketch up there.
That was the first time. That was the first race car I ever drove.
And that was the 11X.
That was an 11X. It was all maroon. Wow. My first race ever was at Knoxville, Iowa.
I can't even imagine the stories in this room over there. If these walls could talk. So who's in the 12X there?
That's Shane Carson.
I thought it was.
The picture, I think that's down at Devil's Bowl.
Look at that.
That was a new Challenger.
The Beaver Special. Wayne Johnson was certainly one of your, one of the guys that I associate in this car, but it was always Shane Carson, certainly, but...
Shane drove in 86, 87, parts of 88, off and on, whenever Dad needed another driver or something, he'd always call Shane and he'd show up. So.
Whenever I ring Shane, he answers the phone, he goes, "This is Shane." He's got that real husky little...
I talk to him. If I don't hear from him or he doesn't hear from me, at least once a month we make a phone call.
Isn't it great he received that award for services to sprint car racing, the Hall of Fame award?
That's just awesome. And the fact that it's made out to the family is ideal. Because there's not just one family member that's done this. It's all of us have done it as a group.
This picture here seems to have some very cool stuff in it. Like
that was what we put together for my dad's wake.
Wow.
Obviously he was owner of the year at Knoxville 3 times. The championship eluded him. They're 86. If they could have won it, Shane got hurt and he had to get some substitute drivers for a couple of weeks. We finished 3rd in points.
Oh Lord, it's hard to be humble. Do I need to ask what's going on in this picture down here? It scares me a little bit, Billy.
It was a Sunday afternoon at the lake. The old man got into the whiskey, and one of us is a sales manager at Beaver. The other one's a general manager at Beaver, and they put on their wives' swimsuits before they. It was on a Sunday afternoon. Put that out of the way.
Like, I'm not sure I can unsee this picture.
You can't.
Look at that.
See, and then that picture here is my uncle who owned 11X, my dad, and that's Stub Van Kerswick on the far left. He owned a 75 VKC's car that Jesse drove.
So it seems like lake life and Leadfoot life, like sprint cars and lake.
That and fast boats.
Yeah. So that was the passion?
That was always the passion, yeah.
Where did the Beaver bit come from? Why did they call it Beaver?
Well, the Beaver Drill and Tool Company, actually the tool company got its name because of the twist drill that we manufacture. And it's made to go drill a hole and then go sideways with it. So someone made a comment, it works like a beaver. And, that both companies got started in 1954. And my dad he got hired as a salesman to work at Beaver in 68. He quit. They hired him back, but made him a partner. Then he caught 2 of the 3 partners writing checks to each other, stealing money, and he went to go to the bank, borrow some money, got turned down by 6 banks. 7th bank took a chance on him, made the check good, and he fired everybody but the ship receiving clerk and the receptionist.
Cleaned it out.
He was 26 when he did that, and took a company that was roughly did 100,000 in sales to we're almost 7 million now. So yeah,
That's
and
phenomenal.
it's all from his efforts to get it started and going and teaching everybody involved with the way he did it. That's where we're at.
So tell me about Mum. Dad obviously was a larger than life personality. How did Mum fit into the picture? Was she the balance?
She was the she was like the mediator for the kids. My dad was a firm person. It was definitely a dictatorship. It was not a democracy. Okay, so she was the one that was kind of the buffer for a long time.
Yeah.
And kept kind of peace with the kids, and my dad always just did his thing. I mean, the shop was always close to the house, so she knew that when he would finally get up in the morning, go to the office while I'll come back, go to the shop, I would have enough time from going to school to football practice to being at the shop by the time he got there, and I'd already eaten dinner. She made sure, because he didn't eat a lot, he just worked a lot.
Really?
Worked and drank. That was his deal.
Yeah, wow.
But she was the mediator.
Okay.
And the peacekeeper.
So you said to me when we first started talking that Dad was pretty good at hiring and firing.
Oh yeah,
with race car drivers.
He didn't pull no punches. Terry McCarl can contest to that, because Terry kind of had a little bit of temper himself.
I was going to say that. That's an interesting mix.
So he started out the year with us in '87, and we had a problem. Wheel broke at turn 4 at Knoxville. He fractured a neck, so he was out for a few weeks. But when he came back, they had a steering issue. I remember this plain as day. Had a steering issue or something, and Terry threw the helmet in the trailer. And next thing it comes out, his helmet comes flying out, his bag came flying out, and he told him to get his damn seat out of the car. He was fired. And so it could happen at any given moment with Dad. So there's another instance where in Mechanicsburg with Sammy, and Sammy got met. We had to run a B. Went out, set track record, won the B. Went out to the A, and he had a guy that he brought with him that did the throttle linkage. And the throttle linkage broke lining up for the A. Sammy took the hood off, took that off, and threw that into the trailer. It didn't quite make the trailer, and I'd seen my dad's eyes light up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, no, it didn't get in the trailer, Dad. Don't fire him now. But it was just kind of how he was. He goes, you disrespect him.
Yeah.
You do something like that, and he goes, you're out. And he knew what he was spending and what he had time invested in and everything. He was the one in control.
So having said that, and all of this as his son, you go and drive the Beaver Drill and Tool Company car. Some would say that was a hiding to nothing. Like, how did you work that in? Because was he tougher on you than other drivers?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a friend of mine come to me. He says, I heard what he said to you in the front straightaway at I-70. And I said, well, what did you hear? He goes, if you don't drive any freaking better than this, I'll put somebody else in it right now. Man, he would. He would. And he was, sometimes the fact that he never drove it would have maybe changed some of his decision making.
That's what I was going to ask you. He never drove.
He fired a car one time, and he left the throttle spring off of it, and about ran over 5 people in the pits. And I think we were at Lakeside, and he got out, and I was about 14 at the time. So every time we needed to fire the car at the shop or something, I was the one that had to do it, because he never sat in the seat again. He goes, I'm not going to be put in that position. He'd never done it. So,
isn't it funny how there are some car owners out there that have never driven, and yet they're very, very clear on how they want the car driven.
Exactly. And it's like, I could get out of the car and I'd tell him, go get in it, see what you think. He goes, I don't have to. I can see it from right here. Okay, Dad.
Game over.
That's it.
Will any of your kids race? Have they raced?
About the time when we parted ways with Sammy, we ended the year that year in 2004. My boys were just at the age to start getting involved.
Yep.
And being that we quit, and I financially couldn't handle taking care of that myself.
Yep.
So
Yep.
we did a lot of wrestling and football.
Okay.
And about the time we can do this again, they're married and got their own families, and,
Yep.
and I've got grandkids now. So the fever for them, that now they have the drive and they want to be around, and they should go to the races to watch. They watch. God bless the Dirt Visions and the flow and all that, and all you guys doing the social media stuff, because they're able to keep up without having to be there.
Yeah.
And so they're all in. I mean, I have twin sons that work for me at Beaver Drill, and they're at the point now where I can spend more time away from the office to be able to do these things, and they're busting their butts along with I have my sister's husband. Got a brother-in-law. He's a sales manager for us, so he's kind of in that same groove where they understand why I'm doing what I'm doing, and they cover for me when I'm away. So it works out.
So I was talking to a little guy from Australia called Skip Jackson, and I said, when you think of the Beaver car, what do you think? What are you thinking? And he said, I remember, Randy Smith drove that car. He said, Randy quit and did a lot of different drives, and at one point raced for, I think, 5 or 6 different teams in 1 year.
And he won the championship, I think, that year.
And I bumped into him at the Hall of Fame suites the other night. I said, Skip was saying that you were pretty good at changing rides. Same would apply to your dad, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that year that Randy won the championship, I'm going back, and I'm pretty sure that was in 1987 when this happened. Randy drove our car for part of that year.
Mm-hmm.
We finished third in points, as Dad did as a car owner. We started out with Terry, and then I think I drove it once at the end of the year. Tony Armstrong drove it. I can't remember. There was another Australian that drove it one time that year. I know Max Dunsby did once in '85 for us at I-70, but I don't know if he jumped in it in '87 or not. But there were 7 different drivers involved.
Did Jamie Moyle or any of those sort of guys ever drive for you?
Jamie Moyle never did. Peter Murphy did. So I talked to, actually I ran into Peter at Oskaloosa, had a good long talk with. He's an awesome guy.
Yes,
I got to meet his son.
Yep.
But he drove after my wife was pregnant, because I don't know how that happened with twins back in '92. That was the year.
You were on your A game that night.
Yeah, I don't know how. Didn't shoot no blanks, never mind. But Peter filled in at the end of the year '92, off and on. We had Steve Siegel drove the car at the Nationals that year, didn't do very good. But I think they put Peter in to run some fair races and different stuff after that. Then '93 is when Dad teamed up with Danny Smith. So, but Peter Murphy drove it. I mean, but as far as that year in '87, I can't remember. Well, Leland McSpadden drove it at the Nationals.
You just rolled off Danny Smith and Leland McSpadden just as a couple of names.
Yeah.
The Tempe Tornado and, wow. And Danny Smith, Danville Dan, what a tremendous person. Both those guys, tremendous people.
And it's kind of funny. So I had 2 410s to start the year out with. They were both, and I'm dealing with Jamie on those. I took one of those 410s and I said, I don't want to get a 360 because I want to be able to run a Hockey Memorial and some races local to Kansas City. And I traded with JT Imperial out of Arizona, and I got to talking to JT. He showed up at Knoxville about a month ago, but probably 2 weeks before the Nationals, and I was talking to him, and he goes, I have lunch with Leland McSpadden, if not every Thursday, every other Thursday. And they were talking about the Beaver deal. And one of the iconic pictures you see of Leland McSpadden in any magazines or anything, he's got a Beaver hat on.
Yeah.
So I sent him a Beaver hat.
Oh, that's cool.
He presented it to him, gave it to him, and he tried to get him to come up to the Nationals, but he wouldn't come up. But I thought that was kind of neat. So,
oh, goodness me.
Yeah.
So much of this that we're talking about, I want to be able to tell people, but sometimes you've got to keep some stuff. Some stuff's got to stay in here. What do you look for in a driver, Billy? For someone to drive this car, you've got Ayrton Jeniton running this car, Chase Randall running this car. What do you look for now in a driver?
Drive. It's all about when you show up to the racetrack, do you expect to win, or are you just hoping to get through the night? And there's some guys you can walk around and you just see on their face if they're just wanting to get through the night and then be done at the end of the night and see what happens the next night. You got to have a guy who rolls out and shows a little fire in his step and wants to go out and race every lap like it's his last one.
So I'm going to say to you, when you say the word drive, I'm going to say Randall, but I'm going to say John Randall. Chase's old man wants it just as bad, and I say with respect,
No, absolutely.
the game plan is to win.
Right. We're not run loading to run second. And you have to have that mentality. And then there are times, even as an owner or a guy working on the car, you start out at night and you're getting beat up. And I go back to a time in 1988 at the Nationals, pitted right next to Steve Kinzer. I was still green. I didn't know a lot. The tie rod had got bent on the front. And there was vibration. We couldn't figure out where the vibration was at. And he leaned over and told me and the guy that was working on the car, he goes, no matter what, don't ever give up. Keep trying. That's how you'll get ahead of it. And that was evident. And every time you run into a problem, you just got to face it head on and take it and get back on the racetrack. Just get back on.
Why do you love this?
Because it's different every time you go. It's a challenge.
Yeah.
Right.
There is so much pride in your voice when you talk about what's out there and what's in here.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it sounds like your old man was tough on you.
For a reason. For a reason.
Yeah, but I guess when you get to a point, you understand the value of that lesson rather than just my old man's.
Absolutely. His dad was the same way to him. My dad came from a family of 11.
Right.
8 boys, 3 girls. He was the second oldest. He was the example because he was the one that usually mouthed off the most. But he learned, and he goes, I learned the hard way, you're learning the hard way. And, I don't think I was as hard on my kids, but they definitely didn't have it as easy as some of the kids they grew up with.
Yeah.
To respect a dollar, what it took to get the dollar, and just having a good work ethic.
Would it have meant anything to your dad at all to know that it's so 40 years later, this is still one of the most iconic, and I use that word, iconic teams in American sprint car racing?
Sometimes you don't realize what you got or what you've done because you just keep doing it. And I think he had an idea. He demanded respect because he knew what it took to get where he got and what he's done. So, yeah, he's smiling down. He might be cussing a little bit, but it's sum it up. The 2015 Wayne Johnson was kind enough to do a retro Beaver car.
Yes.
Okay. We took my dad across the racetrack. They had that car hidden behind the center tire at Knoxville in the pits. He rolled that car out, and he looked at me. He goes, "What in the hell did you go and do that for?" But he was grinning ear to ear. So yeah, he loved it, and he'd be happy to know that we're doing what we're doing.
When you look back on this deal, when one day you don't do this, and I hope that's a while away as yet, how would you like your family to be remembered in this industry?
Just consistent. Good people to be around. We don't like making enemies. We do our best not to. Just all around good people. That's all we want to be. Just respected as who we are.